In continuation of my rezero episode breakdown and coverage of the content that was skipped, I'll be taking a look at episode 3 in today's video, which is probably the weakest so far in terms of adaptation, because there were quite a lot of details from the light novel that were left out from the anime. And before I begin, I wanted to point out that even though episode 3 mainly covers chapters 2 and 3 of the volume 17 light novel, it does jump to chapter 4 when they are showing Garfield and Mimi's perspective, along with chapter 4 of volume 18 as well when it briefly showed Otto's perspective. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Now then, the episode continues from the previous one where Regulus introduces himself to Subaru, followed by his monologue about how disrespectful and rude Subaru was for not returning the courtesy of introducing himself, and it seems to have been shortened by a fair bit as compared to the light novel. However, their conversation was soon interrupted by still enraged Sirius, who started attacking Regulus for protecting Emilia, although there was actually more context behind her motivation, so to explain. It was revealed in the light novel that Regulus often ridiculed Sirius for a fanatical devotion to Beatrice, and even laughed at her despair when he died, and this was the reason why she attacked Regulus despite knowing that he was far more powerful than her, which is honestly an interesting dynamic. Different Sin archbishops having their own motivations that clashes with one another. Nonetheless, as their fight continued, Subaru was briefly falling into despair after seeing how insanely strong the two Sin archbishops were, but he was able to regain his composure thanks to Beatrice, so he started to formulate a plan to rescue Emilia. He even considered the idea of just letting Regulus defeat Sirius first, although he soon dismissed the thought because it might trigger her soul-washing authority. And honestly, it might have actually been better for Subaru to just use Return by Death here, since he would have more information to work with in the next loop, but he did make the resolve in the previous season to not rely on ability whenever he encounters an issue, so I can respect his choice of wanting to face the conflict directly. That said, Subaru and Beatrice will activate EMM, one of the 3 original spells that was developed by them during the time skip. And to explain how it works, the spell essentially creates a magic field that surrounds their body, causing them to be an ethereal-like state disconnected from the physical world. And I only have one nitpick in regards to the usage of the ability, because in the light novel, Subaru actually planned on using EMM to surprise Regulus and to avoid his attack, whereas in the episode, it seems like he activated the skill for no reason, and having him explain how it works really takes away the seriousness of the scene. Furthermore, this wasn't shown in the episode as well, but it was thanks to the following punch Subaru made after EMM that allowed him to roughly guess the authority Regulus possesses, which he noted to be some type of damage nullification field that surrounds the Sin Archbishop, and he even noticed how Regulus had barely any combat training, attributing his overall proficiency to be even worse than the 3 Stooges of Felt, so I don't understand why they removed these 2 instances from the anime, because it serves to show people how perceptive Subaru actually is, likely a skill he developed during the time skip, and it just feels like they're trying to undermine his character growth. Regardless, when Subaru uses Invisible Providence, he starts coughing up blood because his authority of Sloth was considered to be incomplete, and with every usage, his soul would slowly get tainted while also flaring up his internal organs, but even without the side effects, his attack still did nothing against Regulus. But moving on, their conversation was again interrupted by Sirius, who seems to have mistaken Subaru for Beatrice, as she claims the soul of her beloved was now residing inside of him, which is quite a terrifying but also interesting thought. What if a small part of Beatrice is actually lying dormant inside of Subaru, and in some twisted future, he takes over his body similar to what happened in season 1? Maybe that's what the tainted feeling of using Invisible Providence is hinting towards. Either way, Regulus was actually making sense here when he basically calls out Sirius for being a crazy stalker, and it certainly did not help her argument with the examples that she gave about the love that she received from Beatrice. However, this only caused her anger to start resonating among the bystanders, and Subaru tried appealing to her infatuation with Beatrice, but it failed because her affection never came from a place of love, rather it stems from obsession and delusion. That's why she wanted to kill Emilia and Beatrice in the anime. Also, in the light novel, Subaru realized that not all the Sin Archbishops share a common desire as Beatrice when he noticed the differing objectives of Sirius and Regulus for Emilia. And I don't understand why they couldn't at least kept this minor detail in the episode, as it helps to show that some in the Witch Cult have moved away from the original mission of resurrecting the Witch of Envy and simply have their own objectives, which is even scarier to consider because of their unpredictable nature. In any case, both the Sin Archbishop will leave because their true purpose in the Watergate city of Priestella was to search for the remains of the witch that is apparently buried here. More about this in a bit, but not before leaving a gift for Subaru and Beatrice, which was much more heartbreaking in the light novel with how it portrayed the terrified and helpless feelings of Beatrice, as Subaru was too overwhelmed by Sirius's soul washing to notice his surroundings. When Subaru wakes up, he'll find himself inside a field hospital, and from this point onwards, the anime actually made quite a significant removal to some of the sequences. For instance, when Subaru was checking up on Beatrice, the anime left out the despair that he felt after hearing the words coma, as it reminded him of the sleeping ramp back in Rosewall Manor, and we even lose some context on Beatrice, like how she couldn't restore her own mana supply because she was an artificial spirit, and that Subaru can't help as well due to his defective gate. So it's unknown what type of future implications this will have on Subaru's fight against the Witch Cult, because his fighting potential has greatly diminished. But then, Subaru will be joining the Witch Cult response meeting with the other role selection candidates, where some additional details were removed, such as the part where Anastasia informed everyone that some of the people involved in the role selection were currently missing and their whereabouts were unknown except for Feld, who has apparently gone to meet with Heinkel to discuss about the warnings he made in the first episode. As for the others, El stated how he got separated from Priestella when he followed Luzbel to rescue Subaru and the people in the square, so she could still be around the park area. While Garfield and Mimi have been missing ever since his encounter with Reinhardt, and Otto, who was supposed to be meeting with Kiritaka at the Muse Company, never showed up, so I can't imagine why they ultimately removed this entire conversation segment from the anime, because you are supposed to convey how unprepared they were. They not only lack information on the city's condition and people, but the manpower as well to handle the Witch Cult. But I digress. Anastasia was supposed to have a character moment here as well to showcase her leadership skills and talent for handling a crisis, which wasn't included into the episode, so to explain. Subaru noted how tired and worried she looked about the safety of Mimi in the light novel, but despite that, she was able to maintain her composure and is now coordinating the evacuation efforts for the entire city. Furthermore, Anastasia will have Julius along with Iron Fang help with the evacuations as well, and she even had the resourcefulness and foresight to use the same communication mirrors acquired from the battle with Pettigrews to help maintain communication. Also, she personally took responsibility for the security failure of the city and jeopardizing the safety of the other role selection candidates because she was the one who invited them to Priestella. That's why it was quite disappointing they removed her character moment here, as it would have provided some interesting insight on why she was considered one of the favorites to win the role selection. Now, another removed meeting point was Subaru asking about the name of the Sin Archbishop of Las and her relation to the royal family. So Wilhelm revealed that it used to be a princess by the name of Emeralda Lugunica who died of an unknown illness, but due to her vile and cruel personality, she was not awarded the luxury of a royal funeral. This meant that it's not possible for Las to be the same person. Rather, it's more so she simply took on the name as a sick, twisted way of admiring the terrible personality of the deceased princess. Again, I can't really explain the reasoning for why such an important lore detail was removed, but maybe they'll save it for the next episode or something. Be that as it may, the only retained part from the light novel was Anastasia talking about the reason the Witch Cult took the city hostage. They apparently wanted the remains of the witch buried beneath Priestella, but even then, it only partially adapted the conversation, because the anime fails to mention it belonged to the Witch of Pride Typhon, something that was supposed to have been hinted during Arc 5 when Echidna mentioned Typhon died from drowning, but it was unfortunately cut content from Season 2. And it was due to this information that allowed Subaru to make the connection when Anastasia mentioned the remains hidden within Priestella. Adding to this, Subaru had noticed Elle mentioning Typhon's name as well during the conversation, hinting at the possibility that he also has knowledge of the witches, which is supposed to be an actual plot point in a light novel, but given how the anime treats his character, I'm not surprised they remove another detail about him. I mean, they are still not addressing the Elle is an otherworldly plot hole. With that, I wanted to cover the perspective of Otto and Garfiel that were included in the episode as well. So starting with Otto, like I said earlier, his plot point is taken from Chapter 4, Volume 18, and it basically explains how he failed to arrive at the Muse Company for his meeting with Kiritaka. The reason was due to him encountering the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, Lao Batakaitos, meaning this happened right before the announcement made by Capella, and Otto was apparently forced to fight him, so to avoid spoiling anything, we'll move on to the perspective of Garfield and Mimi. Now, if you recall from episode 1, after saving a bunch of kids, Garfield and Mimi brought one of the kids back home, only to meet a woman that resembled his supposedly deceased mom, and here's where episode 3 continues from with them being invited to a home. And what the anime doesn't show throughout this brief interaction was the internalized thoughts of Garfield, as he was trying to find a logical excuse to reject the idea that the person in front of him was his mother, Lisha Tinzo. Additionally, Garfield recalling the tragic past of his mother was omitted from here as well, but basically, Lisha was sold and traded to different bandit camps when she was younger, ultimately leading to her getting pregnant with Frederica, so one can only imagine what kind of horror she experienced. But once she got pregnant with Garfield, she was able to escape with Frederica, eventually coming under the protection of Rosewall, which explains how their family ended up at the sanctuary. However, I can understand the reasoning to remove this from the episode because it's extremely dark, and aside from giving some context into Garfield's family history, it doesn't really do much for the story. Regardless, the reason Garfield soon left is simply because he was afraid of facing the truth about his mother and thought that he was a joke for even calling himself the gorgeous tiger, which triggered his PTSD of Elsa again. But the final punch to break his already fragile emotional state was having Liara's husband validating his suspicions about her being Lisha Tinzer and how she lost her memories during the incident that happened at the sanctuary. So not only is she alive, she had completely forgotten about Garfield along with Frederica. And I definitely have to praise the voice actor. You can clearly tell how difficult it was for Garfield to say that he had no connections to Liara, while it's also clear that her husband knew something was conflicting Garfield as well. Having said that, the real MVP of this episode was definitely gorgeous Mimi, because despite her blunt nature, she clearly understood how Garfield felt at this very moment, so she tried her best to comfort him, and the crying scene was amazingly done. But it was a missed opportunity the anime did not include the Tiger where have you gone line from Mimi. Also, I love how Mimi essentially confesses her love to Garfield, and the light novel somewhat acknowledges this as real love rather than something playful, because Mimi stated how she gets all mushy and tingly inside when she is with Garfield, but that moment will soon be interrupted by the announcement from Capella. So as everyone was evacuating, Garfield and Mimi will encounter Liara, who was worried about the safety of her family, and Garfield was internally conflicted in the light novel about helping her or the Emilia camp because he still had a responsibility to them, but he doesn't want to abandon his mother nor the family that gave her happiness, so he ultimately chose to help her. And it's only fitting the episode is called Gorgeous Tiger, but honestly, comparing with the previous two, this was still quite disappointing even though I found it enjoyable because of the way they undercut a lot of Subaru's growth that was depicted in the light novel, along with the amount of content removed from the meeting with the raw selection candidates. However, I can't deny that the Garfield and Mimi moment was the highlight of the episode, but I really felt bad for Garfield. The dude finally got over his mother's death only to find out that she's alive, lost her memories, and now has a happy family. And even with this knowledge, he can't reconnect with her because he obviously doesn't want to destroy her new life. So seeing him just bottle up his own feelings for the sake of his mother's happiness is super heartbreaking, but also an extremely powerful gesture from him, especially when he chooses to help her save her family.
許してくれねえのかよ。
大丈夫。いい子いい子。
Anyways, that's my breakdown for episode 3 of ReZero Season 3, which is the weakest so far and I fear for future episodes if they continue in this direction. But let me know if you agree with my analysis of the episode and what do you enjoy about episode 3. Be sure to leave your comments down below to help with the algorithm. Also, feel free to give the video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button for more anime content. Thanks for watching and as always, stay safe everyone.